Madam Chair, fellow Toastmasters, and esteemed guests. Who's heard of Les Brown? Great. And that guy who goes, ah! That's got to be Tony? No? No one knows Tony?
Tony.
That's okay. You know what? 2 years ago, I didn't know Les Brown or Tony. I saw Tony Robbins and went, that's the guy from Shallow Hal. Who knows Shallow Hal? Thank you. That's what I wanted. Now, I'm not Les Brown or Tony Robbins, but they do something that I highly respect, and that's instill in people a better perspective, an ideology, a way of being that affects your personal life, your family life, and the lives of those around you greatly. Now, being very Canadian, I want to apologize. I don't identify with many people, especially that guy.
I didn't do anything.
I apologize not because I need to, but because there have been times where I've made people feel less than, and that's never been my intention. Because what I often want to say challenges people to take a good look at themselves, how they feel about themselves, and their place in the world, and their effect on it and everybody else. There have been a few times where I have said some things to a person, and they look at me and go, so I'm not good enough? How many of you have ever felt not good enough based on what someone is telling you? And what they're telling you should be positive. Great. I was really hoping for a response on that one. Because it's funny. I don't identify with the vast majority of people in, say, America, Canada, Europe, because I've never been there, and any of the other countries, because I've never been there. But I do identify with the backstories of people like Tony Robbins or Napoleon Hill. Especially Napoleon Hill. Because when his stepmother said, you'll get more from a typewriter than you will a gun, when I read that line there, as a dyslexic who doesn't read, that hit me. You know, I'm not carrying a knife right now. I'm speaking to you. I'm making sure that I get the most out of life by considering my tools that are available to me in affecting my life and the lives around me. I may look 12, but I'm turning 30 this year. I have an 8-year-old daughter as of December 29th this year, and another one on the way. My 8-month pregnant fiance seems to think very highly of me. Thank God she does, because I struggle sometimes with that. But I identify with Napoleon Hill because that Valley kid idea that acting like Billy the Kid wasn't going to serve him, his friends, his family, or anyone around him. I identify a little bit with Tony Robbins when he was piss poor broke, goes into a restaurant with his last couple bucks, and sees this little kid pulling the chair for his mom, all respectable like, and he had to give this kid this money because he was astounded by the respect that he was showing his mom that most people don't even scratch at. You know, a respect for where you come from, not just your country, but where you come from, actually, is something that most people don't even consider anymore. And that's weird. I mean, I myself have had the issue of disrespecting my mother because of circumstances that she grew into and then made decisions around that didn't serve her or her family or me. That being said, she taught me manners. She taught me respect. She taught me discipline, and she taught me a lot more than that. And of course, it takes, aging and screwing up a number of times to actually realize where you learned what. Now, I didn't learn what I know from people on the YouTube or the Google. I learned what I know from the worst examples of humanity in our country. The pockets of our communities that no one really discusses or looks at. The trailer trash, the grunge, the grind. And being that I look 12, you can imagine growing up what I looked like in this crowd. So I'm here to define something. And I want to pose a question. What do you think this thing I want to define is? I'm going to point at just a couple people to save time. Earl, what do you think this is?
This?
What is this that I want to define?
Well, it's success, it sounds like.
Great example. What do you think, Mario?
Probably it's a way to emphasize something.
Oh, no, I don't mean the bunny ears. I mean, I want to define something. And I'm going to call it this for now. This, it, is how I'm going to reference it until I actually get to what it is. So what might it be based on what I've been saying already? Joe, you seem to have an idea.
Purpose.
That's a good one. Marcus?
Absolute acceptance.
That's great too. You're all on thought, and any one of those will do. But I'm going more to a specific type of this and how it affects everything. I'm not going to tell you now. So, deal with it for now. Hi. So I've apologized. I probably didn't need to, because there's great people in this room. You can all understand and accept a lot, I'm sure. And I don't want to make anyone feel less than, but I'm going to pose some things that may need a bit of a tension break. How many of you have had a conversation and someone goes, "There's too many people in the world"? How many of you have heard that phrase? Show of hands, please. Wow, I would have considered more people have heard that. Because that phrase kind of pisses me off. I'm trying not to swear too much. There'll be a few times where I go, Nikes. But it pisses me off when people say there's too many people. There are 7.5 billion people right now registered. I would say there's probably more like 9 billion people because not everybody is totally accounted for right now. So there's roughly 9 billion people on this planet. How many people can agree with this statement, and I'm not expecting many? Trump affects every single person on this planet. Who agrees with that? Great. Who agrees that a homeless man affects the same amount of people? All right, there's some woke people in here. Awesome. Woke is a terminology the millennials are using. People like me. I believe that every single person who makes a decision has instantly affected all 9 billion people. Just like that. And the apology is more on this. I pose to you, chances are you don't feel like you're affecting all 9 billion people right now, every day, as you sit there quietly listening, making decisions on how you move and what you do, where you look, what you think about, what you focus on. So I'm going to pose that to you right now and challenge you. Do you feel, honestly, that you affect all 9 billion people every time you make a decision? Does anyone feel like that? Good. That's great. Because the general answer is usually no. People don't feel like that. And I want to pose it a bit further to add some responsibility now, especially to those who raised their hand for that. when you feel like you're affecting 9 billion people, I want to pose some extra responsibility now. Do you feel, to the people who raised their hand, that you're affecting countless trillions ahead of you with every decision you make?
I know where you're going with this.
Great. But I'm going to curve you too. And I know that's saying something because that's a seasoned man at this occupation. And I reference people who are far greater than I am in this occupation of speaking. So far, my speech has gone how I'd like it to, not how I wrote. And that's where I have the engagement of the people, where when I make a decision, people respond, and there's an effect. Even now, in the audience, you're affecting the rest of the audience and me. Of course, we're in the same room, we're in the same proximity. But even now, we're affecting people in, say, Nigeria, Australia, fill in the blanks. Now, why do I think this? For every homeless person that decides they have absolutely no value, they create in themselves a problem, they carry it with them, they affect everyone everywhere they go. Da-da-da, you can follow this train of thought on your own. So this, I'm going to tell you now, and why after, is individual growth. And I want to reinvent what individual growth means. It's not about you. It's not about your family. It's not about your friends. It's not about your town. It's not about your community. That's too small now. It's too small. We're all thinking too small. I don't care how great you are, how great you think you are, how great you can be. It's not great enough. There are too many problems now, and there are way too many problems coming. And my generation is going to make it much worse. Yeah. Have you met people my age? So, I know I mentioned that harebrained lunatic in the presidential office in America. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about the homeless people. I'm not here to talk about Les Brown, Tony Robbins. I don't want to swear for shock value. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. You need to individually grow to make your life better, to make your family's life better, to make your health better, your ambition real, your dreams true. If you don't individually grow, you're not just ruining your life, you're ruining everyone's life. Now, this is where I figured there'd be some tension, and sure enough, there is. Now, I recently learned the proper formula for relieving tension. We're all a binary species. We do things, we react. That's the bottom line. No matter how individual we are all affected by the same binary actions. You stand up straight, you gain more confidence. You take a deep breath, and I'll reference the proper formula, the 4-7-8. Who's heard of that? For deep breathing? Great. Maybe we can all just do that once and pretend we did it 3 more times for a foundation of stability. Can we all do that together? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll leave because that's what I'm doing. I wasn't really counting, I never do. Now let's pretend we did 3 more for the sake of saving some time. But if you do that, deep breathing, whenever you feel tense, depressed, angered, or even really excited and you need to control yourself a bit, it's a binary response. It'll put you back to stability. And now you can set an intention. You have gone from uncomfortable to stable, and now you can set an intention. And I'd like for that intention to be that your individual growth needs to be reinvented no matter what you're doing for your individual growth right now. I don't care how great you think you are. I don't care how great you've done. I don't care how great you're going to be. Your idea of individual growth needs to be reinvented to include 9 billion people today, and in 100 years, 50 billion more. Because I don't see a population problem. I don't see a resource problem. I don't see these problems. I see only ignorance and self-absorption that are not being called ignorance and self-absorption. That's the biggest problem I see in the world, and it's the one I want to treat with some kind of accessibility to everyone, homeless or harebrained lunatics. Now, why are there so many homeless people? Why are there so many hungry people? I mean, I could go into the theories of, the tinfoil cap types. But the system's not wrong. The system was built to help make life better. Whatever that system is. Your corporate CEO who pockets $20 billion while, his employees get maybe $60,000. That system was designed to help make life better because that guy did way more than that employee. Way more. Success happens when no one's looking. And then there it is to look at. It's built. It's individual growth. It's considering more than just whatever you were considering big, because it was small. There's a speech out there that I want to reference called The Greatest Speech Ever. My grandfather will not watch black and white movies, but I love them because I didn't get to see him growing up. And there's a movie by Charlie Chaplin called The Great Dictator. And he had, legit, millennial talk, the greatest speech ever. Who has seen that and knows what I'm talking about? Great. If anyone wants that speech, talk to me after. I will send it to you. Because I think everyone needs to see that speech. Bottom line. I'm going to segue into a couple more different things and we'll tie it all back together. Who knows how World War II ended? Just a quick little blurb, nothing specific. Who knows how World War II ended?
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, the Allied forces won. They dropped a bomb and there you go. But who knows how World War I ended? Anyone? That's by design. Because World War I ended by everybody just stopping, not listening, going home, and making life better. Building a farm, building a business, taking care of the family. This is where the joke that the French don't fight actually came from. The French were actually really fierce fighters. Some of the fiercest. But they dropped their guns first. And then they were slandered throughout history for it. Because they don't like our individual growth, apparently. Who are they? I'm not going to get into that. You figure it out yourself. Now, I mentioned I have a daughter. My daughter has helped me learn, again, in a much more focused effort, the things I learned throughout my life. And because of my daughter, I actually did get to look into people like Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Napoleon Hill, on and on and on and on. I've studied them all in the last couple of years. When I go to explain something to my daughter that every kid or every person has to face, I try to give it to her in the most simplified possible way. For instance, when she was at school, I homeschool her now, on top of everything else I do. When she was at school and she maybe had some problems with the other kids and the teachers, in their failed practices these days didn't know what to do, I would have to come in and tell them how I would treat my daughter if she wasn't listening or if she was being difficult. And I basically said, don't do this safe space thing, don't take 2 hours with my kid, don't do any of that shit. I come from a background where I swear every second word, so I think I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I would say to her this: do you want to be a problem or a help? There is no in between. You choose now. What do you think she chooses?
Help.
Yeah. And if I said that to you guys right now, if you were having a problem, if you were being a problem, or if you had a problem, if I said that to you, what would you choose? Who wants to be a problem? Raise your hand. Joe. But I totally saw Marcus coming.
My hand was up.
Oh yeah. What happened to you, Joe? Where were you?
Yeah. I felt a little cold up.
Yeah, come on, man. You left-
Yeah, leave a man hanging.
That's exactly what you did. You left Marcus hanging. The bottom line is, this is individual growth. And it determines the quality of life. This is individual growth. I want it reinvented. It determines the quality of life. Now, when Les Brown and Tony Robbins 20, 30 years from now can't do their job, you know I'll be doing it. Thank you very much.
I'll now bring Matthew's evaluator to the stage. Please help me welcome Marcus Anthony Ryan.